Hey, Closet Busters, come on and gather around. It's time once again to kick down those closet doors of life. We're here to escape our BS, explore our fears, and elevate our self-expression. I'm your host, Rick Clemens, bold move expert and coming out coach, and I'm going to take you to the party, the pulpit, the wake, and back to the party of living your life uncloseted. So come on, grab hold of yourself and get ready to step out, step up, and step into living your truth as we explore more stories, tips, and tricks for living your life uncloseted. Now let's get to the show. Hey, Closet Busters and bold move makers. It is time once again for a Life Uncloseted Riff and Rant, and this one is going to go a little bit personal because I'm going to share a story that one of my listeners, who happens to be one of my friends, shared with me via email. I met Barbara a few years ago at Jonathan Field's Good Life Project camp. I think that was the first place I met her. May have been World Domination, so I'm not real sure, but it was one of those places. She's a beautiful soul, has a great husband, and her and Stuart really have stepped into my life and been just cool people to have around. And I found out via this email that Barbara's been listening to my Life Uncloseted podcast, and I'm going to read some of her story and correlate how what she's sharing is really at the core of being a bold move maker and uncloseting yourself. So she said a couple of weeks ago she got bugged by something I said on my podcast, and it got her thinking that in her own experiences from acting in London and doing TV and film, that at some point she walked away from all that because she felt like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. And she met her husband, and it was time to go be the thing that, so many people say she was supposed to be. And she chased other people's deadlines and dreams. And that turned into a lot of fears, because what she was discovering was she wasn't doing what she was brought to this planet to do. And she suddenly found herself becoming an alcoholic, in a way. An alcoholic to other people's work. Not a true alcoholic, but a workaholic. And it was rewarding for her, but it wasn't really what she wanted to be doing. And she had done so much stuff and wrote that ticket of, being that work person, that she wasn't happy. But she also wasn't mature enough in her own life to move beyond that, because all she'd ever done was work. And she knew she needed to do some stuff. She knew she wanted to get back into the stuff that was really important to her. So after years and years and years of struggling with this, she got back to her drawing and her artistry, and she credits her husband for helping her get through this. And what kept holding her back was she was trying to fit into the art world in a certain way. Her mindset said, this is how you have to be an artist. And that thought alone was her closet. Because in that closet, there was so much effort, there was so much pain, and there was constant judgment that she was putting on herself, that she felt like other people were saying, this is how you have to be an artist. Yet she realized something was really underneath that she was kind of being her own mean girl in her own mind to herself, as well as other people mean girls towards her. So long story short, a couple of weeks ago, she said she sat down to write me some emails and kept trying to work through it and kept making many drafts and writing and everything. And then finally it's the email that I received. And she goes, what I realized was I had to smash down the doors. I had to step through and get out of my flipping closet. That's exactly her own words. And what she shared with me was that she had scheduled a meeting with the development director of her local museum. And, she had wanted to show them some of her artwork, and he even brought one of the founders of the museum with her and a coworker, and she fed him some dinner, and then they started walking around her studio and showroom. And as she did that, some of that stuff was kind of bubbling up, but she knew she was stepping out of her closet. She knew she wanted to tell the whole story. So she was showing them some pieces, retrospective back to like the 80s. And she talked about how it's an entire fantasy fiction world that she's created through her art. And it's part of a book that she's put together. And she said, I don't know how this will go out in the world and how people will respond to it, but I've been driven to create this world. In fact, what I read through that was she was driven to come out of her artistic closet and let her work be her work, let good enough be good enough, and let her art be the art that she wants to create, that she wants to put out into the world. Well, ironically, as she was walking around with the founder of the museum and his coworker, he said to her, the director said to her, 10 times your prices. And she kind of got a weird feeling about that. And then a few days later, she went to a friend's artist talk in the area, and the director happened to be there. And she said, so you said 10 times my prices? And he responded to her, absolutely. And she goes, well, I didn't know who my collectors were. I didn't know who my patrons would be. And he said, I do, because I know those patrons. And before you know it, they're having a beautiful coffee meeting the next day. And she's been inspired to take more of her art out into the world and see where things will go, simply because she made a bold move to uncloset the truth of who she is and the artist that she's meant to be. So what can we learn from Barbara and her story? In the moment that you may feel like you can't put yourself out in the world the way you want, that can be okay. Because at some point in the future, for most of us, the time will come to make our bold move. And when we do, we will unlock that closet door and we will walk through it and do the very thing we're meant to do, provided that in that bold move, as I said before in these podcasts, that you're brave, you're optimistic, you liberate yourself, and you're determined to bring to the world exactly what you're meant to bring to the world in your way that only you can do. So bless you, Barbara. I'm going to have a link to her website and her art so you can take a look at it. But thank you for sharing your story and being a beautiful beacon of light of what it truly means to make bold moves and live your life uncloseted. So that's it for this week. Take care, everyone. And we will catch you in just a few days on another episode of Life Uncloseted.